Hi. If I were to turn back the clock 18 months, there would be no idea in my mind at that time that one day I'd be making YouTube videos on the subject of retirement. For although at that time I'd been retired, so-called, that is out of the paid workforce, for 28 years, I never really saw myself as a retiree. If somebody said, "What do you do?" I'd say, "I'm retired." But I didn't feel that way. I felt that I was still doing work and enjoying what I was doing. Volunteer work for the most place, being involved in various organisations, going out and speaking to groups. I've been a Toastmaster at that time for roughly 50 years. I've been a member of National Speakers Association, the Storytellers Guild and Rostrum Clubs of Australia. So speaking to groups was my thing. But I was very self-conscious when it came to actually making a video. But I watched a video by Connor Neal, a professional speaker, about 8 years back, and he said to get continuing practice in public speaking, use your webcam. And this is what I did. And I spoke on all manner of subjects. A lot to do with public speaking and storytelling, and a lot to do with my own particular philosophies of life. And you know what? Hardly anyone watched them. After about 6.5 years or so, I had maybe 3,000 hits and possibly 35 subscribers. And then I placed one on a whim, which I called Some Thoughts on Retirement. Well, that one hit the jackpot. In less than 24 hours, I had something like 3,500 views. More views in 24 hours than I'd had in 6.5 years. And of course, people were subscribing. So I spoke to my younger son on the phone, and he was a bit of an SEO expert, and he said, "Dad, stick to the same subject. Don't change the subject matter. People like what you're talking about." And this is what I've done. And so far, it's paid off. At last count this morning, it was roughly 574,000 views, tens of thousands of likes, thousands of comments, and well over 5,000 subscribers. All right, this sounds vain. I'll get to what I'm talking about. We have a circle of influence. That circle of influence shrinks considerably when we retire from work, no matter what our position at work. But particularly if we were high up, a CEO or something like that, our influence suddenly goes right down. All we have now is our own family and our own little circle of friends, if we have friends outside of our workplace, and that's it. And we feel very, very diminished. So we have to do something about it. Otherwise we start becoming despondent, disillusioned with life. Maybe we might even withdraw, particularly if we're living alone. This can become a very lonely time. All we knew is our workmates and our work. And now it seems we have nothing. But of course, we have something that we never had before. Freedom of time to do what we want to do. All of that time, which we used to spend commuting to work, worrying about work, worrying about taking telephone and emails out of working hours so that our mind were fixed on work the whole time, that's behind us now. And this can be a challenge because we now have to think of other things to do. Now, as I've said in these videos, I've been placing them now for about 18 months. I've covered a vast area. And I won't say I've become an expert in retirement because I haven't. But I do continue to learn. I watch videos on retirement, I read books on retirement, and of course I make these videos on retirement. Last couple of videos I talked about matters which most people don't talk about. Esoteric, the paranormal and so forth. And you might wonder why I'm talking about this now. Because in retirement people start worrying about they're getting close to dying, getting close to the end. And they start worrying about their beliefs. Do they believe that they're going to survive death? Or do they think it's the end? And if they look at their own lives, and they're totally honest, then most of us have had some sort of paranormal or esoteric experience in our lives that we generally won't talk about. Talking about these things in the old days was dangerous indeed. In my last video I talked about my gift of automatic writing and how I developed it. I didn't tell anyone about that, except one person, for years, decades, because it was dangerous stuff. If you talked about communicating with spirits way back then, and you happened to mention it to your doctor, he'd refer you to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist would probably refer you to an institution where you'd spend a lot of time filled up with Valium and told that you're insane. Not so today. People put videos out on YouTube and other channels talking about near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and all sorts of things they wouldn't have dared to do before. And of course, if you spoke about the esoteric 300 years ago, goodness gracious, you could find yourself being burned at the stake or having something tortured out of you. How we've changed. Point is this. As I said, we've all had these experiences. Often they're inexplicable. I can recall one time I was giving a presentation to a certain group on this subject matter, and I asked for a show of hands. I said, has anyone out there in the audience ever seen a ghost? Well, not one hand went up, and I said, come on, be honest now. Tentatively, one lady raised her hand. Now, these were all women about 10 to 15 years older than me at the time. Their husbands, most of them, had been soldiers, sailors or airmen in World War II. This lady put her hand up. She said, I knew when my husband died, even though he was overseas. I said, how did you know? She said, he appeared to me, just his head and shoulders, and smiled, and I knew he was gone. And 2 days later the telegram arrived. The War Office informs you that your husband is dead. When that lady put her hand up, immediately behind her another woman did the same. She said, that happened to me too. And before you know it, 3 or 4 hands went up all over the place. They were all willing then to talk about their experience once someone else had taken the courage to do it first. So the point I'm making is this. A lot of people are too frightened to admit that they do believe in an afterlife, and they do believe that they will see their loved ones once again when they die. And I'm pretty convinced that this is the case. I hope you got something out of this one. I know it's different from the usual, but I'll continue to post these videos as long as I keep getting comments and likes and subscribers. Thanks very much.